I was looking at this show earlier today, and if I could express my response in headlines, it would go clarity, intensity, continual renewal of vision. So it's a great show, and I hope I can do it justice. I don't think I'll try to place Karl in any kind of historical or contemporary context. Margaret Moore, in the very good catalogue essay, does that better than I can. I'll talk about the effect his work has on me and thoughts that appear. I think the magic of art is not just that information in the form of data is passed on, but something of the state of being of the artist is communicated. I feel that I get something of the character and quality of the way Karl gets so engrossed in the deed of painting. The focus in making the work, his absorption in the process, transmutes into focus and absorption for me, the viewer. The inner realms communicate, not because they are illustrated, but because they are mysteriously embodied in substance. The richness of experience in looking at this show is largely due to the pairs of opposites held in dynamic balance, like buoyancy and gravitas. I also see playfulness and seriousness, discipline and freedom, complexity and clarity. It all somehow comes together with fresh eyes and, this is important, emotional intelligence. I think art that has this seeming lack of struggle can only come from awareness and alertness to all the usual pitfalls and self-made obstacles. And having freed himself from these, Karl can joyfully explore. We can only guess at the kind of vigilance that is required for Karl to avoid getting bogged down in the many pitfalls that can beset an artist. Admittedly, art that comes from heroic struggle can be compelling, but perhaps that is only necessary, or the struggle is only necessary, when there are demons to do battle with, and a lot of cultural and personal baggage to wrestle with. When I look around here, I don't see a battleground, but a playground. A playground for the serious art lover. Karl can play because he has little or no excess baggage. The Indian sage Ramana Maharshi likened the psychological heaviness we sometimes carry around with us to a suitcase full of rocks. Karl has dropped his suitcase full of rocks, and the resulting lightness of being radiates from the work. Here's a quote from the poet E. Cummings. When man determined to destroy himself, he picked the was of shall, and finding only why, smashed it into because. I'll repeat it because it's a bit baffling if you haven't heard it before. When man determined to destroy himself, he picked the was of shall, and finding only why, smashed it into because. This verse deserves to be left alone as an example of enigmatic wisdom, but I'm going to contradict its spirit by interpreting it. I think it's a poetic way of saying that we can lose sight of what is important right now when we live in the past. And secondly, we lose our spontaneity when we compulsively impose explanations on everything. How does this relate to Karl's work? Well, for one thing, I've never heard Karl try to explain a painting. He may describe how it was made, or the ideas or impulses that contributed to it, but I think he knows that an explanation does not leave any mystery. It leaves you with nowhere to go. And the second way the verse relates to Karl is he knows the past is there, the history of art and his own history, but he's not entrapped by it, and so is free to focus intently on the movement in the movement in the moment of making. Is Karl's work abstract? The term abstract is okay for a casual generalisation, but it's unreliable and inaccurate in trying to get closer to the work. The most common meaning of abstract is removed from concrete reality. If people use the word abstract in relation to Karl's work, it is probably because it is mainly non-representational. But it could just as easily be called concrete, the opposite or antonym of abstract, because of its emphasis on the physical matter of painting. On the other hand, so-called realism makes use of illusion, the opposite or antonym of real. I sometimes use the word abstract, but I like to remember its limitations. There is an emphasis on the material in his work, but Karl does not fetishise technique. The paint needs to get onto the surface in a very direct and clear way, and if you call that technique, well, fine, but one thing Karl does not do is try to impress the viewer with virtuoso flourishes. Karl is too immersed in the making to worry about technique or style. A signature style may seem a good thing to an art investor or a souvenir collector, but for an artist it is a bit like switching to automatic pilot. It narrows the possibilities. It means polishing and distilling rather than experimenting and exploring. Artists who are insecure about identity sometimes cling to a signature style as a kind of security blanket. It feels safe and cosy dealing with what you already know. So looking around, I can see recurring themes, distinctive characteristics and an individual spirit here, but nothing that would encourage me to stereotype Karl as an artist. No obvious signature style. It's as though after each series he takes nothing for granted and is open to new beginnings. I think of Karl as a free-range painter. For the sake of the game of painting, he gives himself some direction, some structure, because all good games have rules. But so-called mistakes are accepted, because art without surprise is dull. To allow for surprise, some degree of control is relinquished. Karl is one of those rare painters who can handle the wide open possibilities of painting. I think if he catches himself imagining the way ahead, he probably has some ideas of where he may go, but along with those ideas, I'm sure he is curious and fascinated to see how he will surprise himself. So I'd just like to congratulate the Drill Hall Gallery for mounting this wonderful show. I would also like to praise James Erskine and the Liverpool Street Galleries for supporting Karl over the years. And of course, Frederica must be acknowledged for being a great companion, wife and co-conspirator. Lastly, I thank Karl for thinking of me to open this show, which I now declare has opened.